Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Frisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbysrestaurant.com. At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, talk a lot about the Saints, the LSU Tigers. We hope to have time to get the Tulane Green Wave, the New Orleans Pelicans. One of my favorite guests tonight, Mike Detillier, joins us on the program. He'll break it down for us. Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us.
Appreciate it. You should have got me in another week, but this will do. No, it's not like I haven't been asked these questions.
Right, over and over again.
I think this week so far it's probably like 40 shows that I've done differently, and about 37 of them are LSU and Coach O questions.
Right.
And it is what it is.
Well, we're gonna fire away with LSU first.
Yeah.
But and look, and I mentioned it on the radio show this week. No one in the media is closer to Coach O, but I will say this: I know that you will tell it like it is. That despite your relationship, that again, you have there's a line there, and you understand that line, and you will tell it like it is.
Yeah, because we've talked about this in the offseason. Him and I, Bobby. Bobby's related to him.
Yes.
They played at South Lafourche together. Mm-hmm. They were roommates at Northwestern together. So, if you stay in this business long enough, you're going to know someone that either you kind of grew up with or been friends with, and that friendship stays. And that was the thing we got. Hey, listen, Ed got a job to do. Bobby and I have a job to do. And whatever's said, at the end of the day, we still friends. But I'm going to be objective about it because that's my job. And he knows what his job to do is. Win. That's why you took this job. Sure. And Bill Parcells has the saying that there comes a moment in every head coach's life, normally in year 1 or year 2, you wake up in the morning and you run that water and you splash it on your face and you look at that dude in the mirror and you say, I know why this job was open. Well, for Ed, it was Sunday morning when he splashed that water. So, that was a humiliating defeat for LSU. And, one of the things about defeat, it has a million fathers and everybody knows how to fix it. Everybody got an opinion to how to fix it. But there comes a moment where this is your team, and some of the things that have happened surrounding that loss is disturbing, and some of that from him. First things first, when I think of Coach O, great recruiter.
Yes.
No matter where he's been, even at Ole Miss. Yes. Look what Houston did with those teams. He
set Houston nut up.
Exactly, and then after he didn't have his players anymore, then Houston hit the skids. Right. He's recruited and developed 11 first-round pick defensive linemen. That's saying something.
That's strong.
Thirdly, when you think about him as a person, intense, aggressive, all out, hair on fire, we're going to play this game 60 minutes, I'm going to be tough, and I'm going to be physical with you. That's what I don't see. No fire.
I agree.
And that's got to come from him. The Edo we saw at the end of last year, You haven't seen it. You can be, you just can't be something you're not. And sometimes you got to have your emotions take over. You can't be stoic on the sidelines. You want to try to look CEO, but that's not you.
Right.
And players know that. You know, but you can't treat defensive linemen and quarterbacks the same now. Because, you know, we were there at the Alabama game, and I saw him when Danny Etling came off the field. And listen, there's no way you could repeat 2 words that he said to Etling. I mean, he was all over him. Funny, though, for the Louisville game, Danny Etling throws a pass out in the flat and looked like a lame duck. It's an interception right at the end of the half. Well, Etling walks off the sidelines, and Ed just folded those arms and stared at him. Well, at the Manning camp, Etling told me, you know what? I'd have much rather took the chewing than the stare. Because he said, basically, he stared me into the ground. And he said, you know, it was almost that shake moment of, you know, I'd much rather hear him holler at me than not say it. Everybody, listen, you can blame whoever you want with this, but the lack of fire and intensity and aggressiveness on this team, he's got to light the flame. He's got to be the starter with it on this particular part. And whatever it takes, he's got to do. It's funny, in the spring, I went to the Manning Awards, and this year, Deshaun Watson wins it for the 2nd straight year. And, you know, Archie and I, we go back a long way, almost as long as Ed and I. But, you know, and Archie said, don't say that because with all that gray hair you got, you made me look old too. So whatever. You know, growing up, you know, Archie was idol of mine, like with Pete Pistol. You know, those 2 guys.
Same thing. Same 2 guys.
Dabo Sweeney was there with Deshaun, and he approached me knowing that, you know, I knew Coach O, and he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, and just keep it in the back of your mind. He said, you know, when I got hired at Clemson, I was an interim coach. I had never been a coordinator in my life, never. I was one of Tommy Bowden's boys. I was the receivers coach. And he said, I was technically a coordinator, a recruiting coordinator, which means Tommy wanted to give me a little extra money, and so I got that title. But he said, you know, everything filtered through Bowden. You know, when you're a recruiting coordinator, you don't have no say. That goes through the head coach. And he said, you know, my 2nd year, we end up being 6-6. We lose the bowl game. We 6-7. And everybody wanted me out at Clemson. Every sports writer, every newscaster, every radio, and everybody, they wanted me out. And he said, then, you know, you start to hear board of supervisors people, they want me out. And he said, one guy stood up for me, Terry Don Phillips. And if that name's familiar, he was at Southwestern Louisiana. He was the athletic director there. And so goes to show, that's back in the 80s. So I've been doing this a little bit of a while. He leaves there to go to Oklahoma State. His first opportunity, he got to hire a head coach. So he hires the tight ends coach from Dallas. That guy's Les Miles. They were 4-7 year one at Oklahoma State. And then Les turned the corner. And 3 years, and he landed the job at LSU. But he said, you know, you learn something real quickly, that the buck stops with you. You cannot point fingers. You can't get angry. You can't meddle because you say, you know why? I did it.
Right.
He said, look, I did it. I meddled with the offense. I got involved with defense and that sort of thing. And he said, I shouldn't have. But I learned my lesson. And he said, the one guy that stood up for me was Terry Don Phillips. And he kind of gave a whisper is, who's going to stand up for O one day? Because I think, you know, you can feel the winds that the guy who's in big trouble here is Joe Oliva.
I would agree, and rightly so.
And exactly. Because it's not just hiring Ed Orgeron.
This is a long list of coaches that have not lived up to what they should be doing in terms of winning. And of course, you know, he's got his hands all over those coaches. There's a long list of them.
One of the things Terry would tell people is, as an athletic director, it doesn't matter what you pay a coach. And it doesn't matter how much control. People, you know, they got people that claiming to be insiders at LSU, which is a false narrative. There is no insider other than people on the staff at LSU. Coach O's not going outside the realm. Now, him and I may talk about something, and he may tip me off about something, and we did it in July. I had a meeting talked with him. I came right here and told you exactly what he told me. I'm going to play 14 to 15 freshmen this year. He lied to me. He's playing 20.
Right.
But nobody had that up until that time. and him basically saying before even fall camp starts, he knew he had some spots to fill. But Terry's always about everybody becomes an insider. Every former player, coach, scout, you name it, they know everything. And I got Coach O's ear. I'm not an LSU insider. You don't tell me much of nothing. You know, Bobby and I, we sort of the same. Mm-hmm. He'll give you stuff there, here, and there, but he don't tell me day-to-day operations, and I don't ask it. You don't get into my personal business as far as what I do outside football, and I don't get into his personal thing. But Phillips is always about, no matter what you pay a coach, his main job is to win. And if you win, that makes me look good. You know, because look at what Oliva tried to do 2 years ago. He tried to put up a package to bring in Jimbo Fisher.
Yes, he did.
Now, he got played a little bit by Fisher and his people. He got played, and he got the ad money at Florida State. He got concessions on certain things that he wanted in the program. So you got played. And then all of a sudden, the political part got into it, as it always does in Louisiana. Les stays. He's a coach that the AD don't want. The players are saying, you know, you bringing him back or you keeping him, or what's the deal here? So his play is now Tom Herman. On the radio shows I did up until Thanksgiving, my deal was, hey, Herman's got this job. It's his. And all of a sudden, Texas comes rolling in.
As you knew they would.
And so my deal is, you were given a lot of time to set this up. This just didn't happen yesterday. And you look at what's happened in basketball throughout the years and how he's handled certain things. Man, listen, he's on the far. Right. And he's hanging on by cross. But, you know, that $12 million buyout, here's my deal. Ed Ogeron went to Northwestern State in Louisiana. You know, all I know is Joe Oliva went to what, Fordham and Duke? Well, who's the smartest guy in the room? No, the athletic director. You got to be the smartest cat in the room. And at that moment, why would you give him that big buyout when he didn't have another play card? Didn't have it. Right. So that's on you. So Ed's got to win. This is on him. Do you have some personnel issues? Yes. And I see it sometimes with real successful coaches that recruiting at the end, they don't pay as much attention to it. I've seen it. I saw it with Les. Start with Steve Spurrier. I mean, he changed the way football's played in the South completely in what he did. And it trailed off at South Carolina. I think a big reason why Bob Stoops left Oklahoma got nothing to do with coaching. It's recruiting, because that's 24/7, almost 365, and you got to be focused and you got to get everything right, because that's not about today. It's about tomorrow and the next year and the next and the next. And now they're recruiting these guys as freshmen in high school or sophomores. So that's a big toll you got to go through there. But you know the job. This is all on Coach O's lap now. He's got to be able to figure it out. What I really didn't like was him meddling in the offensive scheme and then him calling out people at his press conference. Look, you look like the guy that was at Ole Miss. If you're going to call out your offensive coordinator and Nick Brossette and the kicker, you do that privately. You don't go in that room with reporters and do it. Come on, you got to handle that differently. And, well, we're going to simplify the offense. Well, wasn't it as simple as it could be before? You hired Matt. Give him the keys to the car. We've all had, you know, if you're a certain age, we've all had kids. You got to hand them keys off. Now, you were scared the first time, you know, your kid leaves with that car, but you trust them that they're going to come back safe and the car will be at least in one piece when it comes back. That's what Ed's got to do. He cannot meddle in the offense. People say, well, Nick Saban, he runs both sides of the ball. That's incorrect. If Nick was such a great offensive coach, my thing about it is, why didn't he call the plays in the BCS National Championship game when he told Lane Kiffin, you can get to stepping? He got a guy that was an analyst in the booth to come down to make those calls, in Steve Sarkisian. So they say, oh, what about Bill Belichick? Okay. We know about it because every year, two of the coaches from New England come down and they work the offensive defensive lineman camp at Nicholls State University. And one of them is Matt Patricia. He's got his head backwards with the cap, pencil in the ear, and he's told me more than one time, Bill says, that's your responsibility. You call the plays. Now, if you start to mess up, then you're going to answer to me. And like he said, it's the same thing with Josh. Josh McDaniels calls the play, and before him, it was Bill O'Brien. You know just one side of the football real well in comparison to the next. Richie Pettibone, who I've known for years and years, told me Joe Gibbs never came in no defensive meeting for us. Joe handled the offense. He's in the NFL Hall of Fame. Richie handled the defense. And it worked out unbelievable. You see the run that the Redskins made in the 80s with those two working as two separate things. Ed's got to let his offensive coaches do what they have to do. And if it fails, you know what? It was your decision to bring him in, but you ride him. You got to throw your saddle on him. He's had success at North Carolina State. He's had success at Pitt. Yes. Let him ride this horse. Don't get involved in the coaching part of it. But, you know, I know how he is. I grew up in that part of the country. Only thing that separated us was the Intercoastal Canal. He was south of it and I was north of it. So I went to Central, he went to South. You want to micromanage everything. You think you know better than everybody else on it, and there comes a time when you have to delegate authority. And he didn't do that well. Now, can he go back to that now? He's saying, you know, I'm going to let Matt run it. Mm-hmm. That would be the thing to do.
You've answered the question about the comments about the offensive coordinator and Brissett. You obviously answered the question about the lack of emotion on the sideline, which was one of the things I want to talk about. What about these meetings, Mike, that we're hearing? You know, the players-only meeting, the captains coming together meeting, the meeting with Joe Oliva and the coordinators. How much do you think of that as fact? How much and is there an internal problem on this team, in your opinion?
Well, the one thing I do know, because I was in the business world and still am for quite a number of years, meetings don't accomplish squat most of the time. They don't accomplish nothing. Now, if you have these little talks with the AD every week, so be it. Right. But all these meetings don't accomplish anything. And
why announce that you're going to?
Man, I don't say nothing about that. That's in my deal. I keep that to myself. So that goes to show you, Ed don't need an insider, and he don't have one. He says it himself. Mm-hmm. He basically is telling you we're having these meetings and that sort of thing. Eric, I don't believe in that. I understand if you meet with your coaches at certain times and that sort of thing. Same thing with the AD. Mm-hmm. But all these meetings don't accomplish much of nothing in reality world. What you need now is you need some leaders on that football team to say, just like what happened when Les got fired, and it was Jamal Adams, and it was Darius Geis, and it was Duke Riley, and Tre'Davious White. That deal is Ethan Posick, also another one. We ain't letting this season go by, and they became leaders. You look at this LSU team today.
Where are they?
Tell me one.
Well, I don't know. Where are they? Devin White looks like a leader on the defensive side of the ball. You can't count on Arden Key right now. He's out of shape and not playing well. Lockator maybe looks like a little bit of a leader. I guess Edley will be a leader on the offensive side, but I don't know if you got the type of leadership you had last year.
And one of the things with all the guys I named, they had skins on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Agreed.
The other guys, now listen, I think Devin White's going to end up being a terrific football player. But, you look at Danny Etling, you got what you got. Mm-hmm. And listen, God bless him. What he did last year to play through that injury, and he's limited as a quarterback, but he won you games last year in that spot. Lockator, he's a solid player across the board coming off of a major injury. So, again, when you're a leader, you better be able to back it up on your end too. And I think other guys see that. What I think we don't see here is other guys kind of getting in the face of a player and saying, hey, you messed that up. You're supposed to know better. Or either that or just get out of my way, I'm going to take over. Right. And you saw that at times last year with some of those same guys that they took over a game. And other guys feed off of it, Eric. They just feed off of that particular deal. As a coach, you can do a certain amount. Man, give me players. Every time, give me players. You got a lot of don't give me the stuff too about young talent. You're playing a lot of young players. 14 of your 22 starters are either juniors or seniors.
Right. True.
So my thing is, you're playing freshmen, but you also playing juniors and seniors. Those guys got to become the leaders on this football team. You got to have alpha dogs. In any business you in, you got to have guys that take over and take control when things get out of line. Now, you might not like how they do it sometimes, but so many things today, it's got to be protocol. The people that founded this country, they didn't do protocol. Right. or either that or we'd still be a British colony. You know, it wasn't about protocol. It was about doing things right and making sure that that's how it's going to be done. And for LSU, it's almost like everybody's waiting for somebody else to be the alpha dog, somebody else to be the leader, which you don't see too is splash plays. I'm going to steal a line from Sean Payton there. Arden Key, he's been pedestrian.
Right.
And my thing about it is people say, oh, well, he's playing for the NFL. I heard it. Do you know that the NFL people are watching him?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so if he's got that mindset, then, you know, somebody better tell him the eye in the sky don't lie. You know, you're not making plays. Now, I never question somebody's health because I can't be in his body to say, in his threshold of pain, everybody's different. All I think I know is for 2 years, Darius Geis was a warrior. I mean, you know, you wanted that guy on your side. And I see people pointing the finger in his direction. How do you know? You're not in that locker room. But again, we got people that they want to blame. It's easy to blame Darius Geis and Arden Key. But there's much bigger issues here on this LSU team than those two guys. But what you really want is that those two guys play like star players like we saw a year ago.
Well, hopefully they're going to get healthy, which again, we believe they will against Florida this week. And we'll see a different team that got embarrassed against Troy last week.
And they got embarrassed last year against Florida. Florida comes in there with 7 starters hurt.
Oh, I remember.
And they roll in.
Right.
And how ironic now, the Hurricane game, and you know, and we got something kind of roaring out in the Gulf too. It's amazing. But, you know, I have a friend of mine who I played a little bit of AAU basketball with. He's same age. He's from Thibodeau, and he's one of the chief odds makers for the win. Out in Las Vegas. You know, that point spread opened up 5.5. Look at it today. Yeah. It's down to two and a half.
2.5 down? Okay.
And so, man, you know, it's one of two things, Eric. Either people think, man, LSU's going to come up with a big game and pull off an upset, or Florida's every bit as bad as LSU, which I think they're right about.
Maybe a little bit of both.
and so you got a little bit of balancing the scale there.
Right. You win in the trenches. And especially on the offensive side of the ball, right now they're a little bit suspect in terms of talent, in my opinion. You do this for a living. You evaluate these guys for a living. Talk about that offensive line. Should they be a better offensive line at this point, considering the freshmen they have on this team and some of the guys that are playing outside of a guy like Will Clapp, who you thought going in was going to be a pretty good player already?
And you look at Toby Weathersby, you know, if he's healthy, he's starting for a lot of college. And listen, he's going to be a pro player. Now, I think KJ Malone is a better inside player. And he's going to get his shot in the NFL, but it's going to be at guard, not at left tackle. So, and I agree with you on Clapp. I think he's one heck of a football player out there. You are playing freshmen because you have to at this particular point. But you know what? If that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. I watched USC last Friday. They playing freshmen on their offensive line too. Now, they got beat against Washington State, but they don't have 3 deep. It's the hardest positions to find, Eric. It's really the new skill people of the world, offensive, defensive linemen. Man, I can find a receiver. I can find a running back. I can find a cornerback. I can find linebackers. And find me a big tackle that can block a 245-pound pass speed rusher, and I'm 315 pounds. Where are those guys in the world? Right. There's not a lot of them. You are getting back Rashard Lawrence, who I think most definitely is the best defensive lineman LSU has, and a leader. He's a leader up front. And also, too, Ed Alexander, who's a big man in the middle, hard to move off. Because, you know, you see with Gilmore, he's giving it his all, but, you know, he's out there a lot of snaps. You got to get off the field on third down. That's the most stunning part. You were 0 for 8 on third down conversions on offense. That's not bad. That's lousy. That's unacceptable in any brand of football. And I don't want to take anything away from Troy. They were a better team that night. They deserved to win. But you shouldn't be in that position to lose to Troy.
Well, even
you should not be in that
Troy
position.
Head coach said, I've got a few players on this team. They can play in the South.
They got a ton of them.
Okay, but the other side, they got a lot of players on that LSU team.
Eric, what brought a red flag up for me was not what Troy's coach said, but what Dino Babers, he did a press conference, I think it was the Thursday before the LSU game, and his comment is, you know, if we hang in there into the fourth quarter, we got a chance because we think that we can kind of wear LSU down and we can make some plays off of them. You know what he was doing? He was calling out your toughness. He was saying you're not in great shape. But nobody picked that up. In essence, the coach at Syracuse is calling out LSU at that point and saying, I don't think you're in shape, and I don't think you can match up with us in the trenches, and we're just going to play a little bit of small ball. And what happened? You open the door from an idiotic call at the 1.5 yard line to run a play where you pulling people. Come on. You just take the quarterback sneak and get it out of there. Terrible play call on that particular deal, and then that opened the door because your defense right back on the field, and that gave Syracuse an opportunity. But Baber's comments was the first shot. Now, listen, you can play a bad game like they did against Mississippi State, but Baber's was the one that called you out. No, listen, that's a head coach questioning your toughness, your physicality, and stamina.
How do you get over that? I mean, do they have that? Do they have the toughness on this team? I mean, do you?
I think you're fixing to find out in the next couple of weeks.
There's no doubt with this gauntlet that's coming up. The good thing is the SEC's down. It's not where it usually is. So this schedule that looked daunting in the beginning of the season, not as daunting as it is with the exception of the University of Alabama. So we'll see if the Tigers can rebound here. The question is, where are these guys' pride going to be after losing homecoming at home to Troy?
If you can't get up for Florida, Florida put you as their homecoming game.
Oh, yeah.
Just think about that. Yeah. They put you as their homecoming game.
Especially with all that talk last year.
Man, and listen, these two teams don't dislike one another. They hate one another, so to speak. And McElwain, he got the paddle, and he just stirred the pot up after the game, some of his comments, and kind of pointing and laughing and everything else in the offseason about, LSU got what they deserved and that sort of thing, and we should have beat them even worse. And my thing about it is, if that doesn't get your pride up, nothing will.
Do we see a different O on the sidelines this Saturday?
Well, I hope so. Because, again, I think you feed off of his emotion. And I understand what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
He was trying to be the CEO.
He wanted to be everybody said he had to be the CEO.
You can't be Eddie O with his emotions and everything else. No, that's who you are. You can't be phony. These guys smell that phony stuff a million miles away in that deal. So I hope that he comes with it and brings that emotion and that fiery disposition like we've seen in the past. That's part of his personality. I've been knowing him since he was always like that.
Right.
So you can't put that in your pocket at this point in time. Yeah, you want to be controlled and you want to look CEO, but you know what? Not every CEO handles things the same.
True.
We've all worked for people that can tell you, just like you and I talking what's wrong, and yet we've worked for people that raise that voice and they get into you about certain things. But you know what? I accept it if that's part of their personality. Sure. If it's for a show, I don't
you pick up on that quick.
Yeah.
What about the talent on this team? People are questioning the talent on this team now. How talented is this LSU team?
It's not the talent that Les took over from Saban, but come on, you can't say that this team has been a top 4 or 5 in recruiting, and then all of a sudden you got bad talent. Are you thin at certain positions? Yes. You're thin across offensive, defensive line. But you know what? Other than Alabama and Clemson and maybe Oklahoma, tell me another team that's not exactly like that if they don't have injuries. When they got one guy down, the next guy, I always tease Bobby about this because he always says, next man up. And I always tell him it depends on who the next man is.
It surely does.
And that, to me, is part of college football. That's the change. I think years ago, your second-string tackle or your second-string center or your second-string defensive tackle was pretty good. You look at college football today, it's totally different. And look at the pros. I mean, you talk about a drop-off is there, but where's the Benny Logans and Michael Brockers of the world? That's not one of those guys on this football team. I think Rashard Lawrence has got a chance to be really special as a player, but they don't have enough of them. You can point a finger everywhere. I mean, I hear all this ridiculousness about it's Frank Wilson's fault. It's Ed Orgeron because they were recruiting coordinator. They don't even know what a recruiting coordinator does. He basically just kind of sets up that board that's given to him. If you got a cell phone today, you can be a recruiting coordinator. I can look up that Rivals top list.
Sure.
And also, too, you also hang your hat on position coaches. You hang your hat on those guys to give you an opinion of the players that are there. but it all goes to one guy, Les Miles.
That's right.
And he was there for the majority of this. And I don't want to blame Les for what happened. It is what you see toward the end of somebody's tenure that starts the slide for you. One thing I give Saban, you look at Alabama, ain't no slide there.
They reload.
And Ohio State, who's lost more people early to the NFL than Urban Meyer, and he reloads it every year.
But it has affected LSU. I mean, if you're going to be honest about it, you got to say juniors that are leaving, and when you go into LSU and you start talking about players that commit to LSU, that have the ability, the pedigree to get to the NFL, you got them for 3 years, and you got to get everything you can get out of 3 years.
You better play him now.
Right, which is what he's doing. He's playing the freshman now. If the season continues to go south, can he stay above water here? Can Orgeron get through this without again having the wolves at the door?
Well, Les had the wolves at the door, and he was winning big.
Right.
He was winning 9 or 10 games. So come on, you're always going to have people. And I talked to a couple different reporters about this. It was funny. The Saturday after, Ed gets the job Saturday morning, and Saturday afternoon. And I don't want to call out any reporters or national guys, but I got them from 6 or 8 top guys in this business. Fox, ESPN. Hey, man, tell Eddie O we proud of him. He was a great fit for LSU. Make sure you tell him I said congratulations, that sort of thing. And, they're trying to butter me up to help him get Ed to be on the show. Now that deal is, y'all settled for Eddie O. Well, come on, you can't have it both ways on that particular thing. But I do think that, he's going to ride this season out, whatever happens, good or bad, and he's going to have 2018. But he's got to have that improvement, because I think people see that. I think they're more upset, Eric, about how they're playing than anything else.
They want an emotional team. They want a team that looks like they care, and right now they don't. We're going to take a break. We come back. Want to shift gears to the Saints on a 2-game winning streak. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Mike Detillier is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or AmcoFenceCompany.com.
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Mike Detillier. Mike, Saints now 2-2, 20-0 shutout over the Miami Dolphins in London. I thought it was a great move by Sean Payton to take this team from Carolina to London, get them acclimated to the time difference, jet lag, etc. And of course, I thought they accepted really the first quarter, and of course they moved the ball on offense. Obviously, got the field goal. You had the big interception by Crawley in the end zone after the Dolphins moved the football. But both sides of the ball after that played well. I thought it was the most complete game of the season for the Saints. And again, a much-needed win going into this bye week. A lot of us thought 2-2. They needed to be that going into the bye week. I don't know how many of us thought it would be Carolina and Miami. I thought it would be Minnesota and Miami. But nevertheless, they're 2-2. And they're getting healthy now, despite the fact a couple guys have gone on IR, and Zach Strief and Anzalone. In my opinion, they didn't miss a beat with Robinson once he came in for Anzalone. What's your take on this team right now?
Well, one of the things with coaches, and I got them in my family, they superstitious. When Sean went to London, the last time, they were there for the week. And so you, a creature of habit, you do the same thing over and over again. And listen, if it works, it works. I have other coaches that have told me I'd much rather go to Friday, make it the one-day stay, we play the Sunday, and then we off. We come back home. So everybody's got a little different take on it, but for Sean, it worked. And so you know what? If it works for you, great. I thought up front your offensive line controlled things. They did a real good job against a really good defense.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that front that Miami's got is really, really good. And Eric, I put this out Sunday, and I really believe it, that you got two players in Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore. They're good. They're not only good, they got a chance to be elite.
I agree with
and so I'm talking about, when you say elite, not the top 10, I'm talking about the top 4 or 5 at their position. When you talk about young kids, I look at Lattimore, the quarterbacks aren't throwing the ball in his direction. They're throwing it at Ken Crawley, who's really played well the last 2 weeks. But the Ken Crawley thing brings up the other deal. It's football politics. The first 2 weeks, Aaron Glenn, Texas A&M guy, he wanted to play his Gig'em boy. Devontae Harris, wanted to play his Texas A&M guy. Played him, and he got beat like a drum. Come on, you can't tell me that Ken Crawley is not a better player than Devontae Harris.
I thought he was.
So my thing about it is, there's always that little bit of politics involved with it. Always a little bit of a connection. And one thing with Devontae Harris, I give him a lot of credit. He doesn't play like Deion, but he got an attitude that, hey, listen, keep throwing it, but you see with Lattimore and Michael Thomas, 2 star-type players on your football team, and with Alvin Kamara and Ryan Ramczyk, 2 very good players. 3 of those 4 came in one draft. How many times have we talked about this on this program? This team has whiff across the board. And that put them in the situation that they were in for 3, 7, and 9 years.
You got to go back to 06.
My thing about it is, it may not get you out of middle of the pack this year, because you seem to be that trendy team, win 2, lose 2, win 1, lose 1. And you playing in a pretty tough division in the NFC South, but you played with some confidence on defense. You came up with some big plays, but we all know one thing. For the Saints to win, their offense has to play great. You can't give a good performance. They got to play great. One thing I do know is, as soon as I knew for sure Jay Cutler was starting this game, I'd have put everything I had on the Saints. And just because, he looked like he really doesn't care about anything. And I question Adam Gase on this. Why not feed the football to Jay Ajayi 25 times against the Saints defense? In essence, he sort of unplugged him and said, Jay, go out there and make the plays. And come on. He looks about as disinterested as could be. And this team, which at one time had really fed the ball a lot to Jarvis Landry, now Devontae Parker become their guy under Jay Cutler. So it was a big win for him. You're 2-2 now. You got your bye week. The next 2 games will be the telltale story, because you're playing 2 teams you have not matched up well against in recent years, and 2 quarterbacks that ain't Jay Cutler.
That's the truth.
Matt Stafford, I told this to Coach Payton doing the coaches show. I said, kind of growing up in the 70s, I watched Staubach and Bradshaw and Tarkenton and Burt Jones. And, man, those guys were good. But you know who Stafford reminds me of? He's a right-handed version of Ken Stabler. Just give me the ball at the end. Give me the ball. Now, Snake had a lot better supporting cast than what Stafford did, but there's so much confidence around him with those players. Man, 3 minutes left. We down by 2 points or 3 points. Oh, Matt's going to get us there. And you know what it does? Puts the fear in the defense. Man, Matt Stafford got the ball again late in the game, because you do know, and you watch it on film of what he's done in the past. And then you play Aaron Rodgers. Because I'll be honest with you, today, if I had one quarterback for one game, everything on the line, he's my pick. Man, I think the world of Tom Brady. I think he's the greatest quarterback in our generation. Now, people will argue Montana, Unitas, all this stuff, and that's fine. In my opinion, Brady's been the best. But in a one game, winner take all, give me Aaron Rodgers. Because when you look at that Packer roster, there ain't a lot of guys you can take off of that team other than Jordy Nelson and their left tackle when he's healthy, and put him on another team and he's a surefire starter.
We've seen great strides on the defensive side of the ball. Fool's goals are real.
I think erratic, because we saw 2 weeks where nothing. I mean, they were just getting drilled, and then you saw 2 weeks where they played real well. That's trendy, Eric. We've seen that throughout the years. Do they have better talent on defense today? Absolutely. How quickly the young guys can mold into there, and now you get an injury to Anzalone, so you don't have, a guy that's experienced like Craig Robertson. Now, Craig he told me a great story during the summer. He's like, I'm the 6-pound bass. He said, a little bit about fishing. I'm the 6-pound bass. They catch that 6-pound bass, but then every other fisherman says, man, you know what? I had a 9 or a 10-pounder, but he broke he broke my deal on it. He got away.
Right.
And he said, every year I'll be the 6-pound bass, and everybody's looking to land the 9 or 10 pounder.
They're going to replace me.
Always.
Right.
Always.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't have much fear when I saw Anzalone go out with the shoulder injury. Kind of was looking for it. We kind of were looking for it all season long because he had been brittle at Florida. It was good to see him at least in the first 3 games where he didn't have those issues. But I knew Robinson was coming in the game. Yeah. We saw what he did last year. He was the best linebacker on that team last year, and they didn't miss a beat.
And he played with one arm at the end.
Yes.
Because that arm was just hanging. Right. I've been also impressed with Marcus Williams as a rookie, as a free safety. I think he's done a really good job there. What I'm disappointed in, no push in the middle.
Yeah.
Where's Sheldon Rankins?
Right. They miss fairly desperately.
Oh, listen, it's not an excuse, but it's a fact.
Right.
Of that guy had looked as though he had made a turn in his career where you talk to centers and guards in this league who played him last year. They would say, man, he was a load. We didn't see that fairly 2 years ago. So, that's the one thing with this defense, that they don't have that big-time push in the middle that you see from the better teams.
Right.
Because they take away your pocket. You can't step up in the pocket. You look at Minnesota with Linval Joseph. I saw a couple times with Drew Brees. He wanted to step up, and what Joseph did, he pushed Max Unger and Larry Wolford right back into the backfield.
Meanwhile, you had Brady and Sam Bradford just stepped up continuously with again, no issue in terms of pressure. I like Williams as well. I just think he's going to be more of a playmaker back there. I don't see him as the hitter. Von Bell's probably going to have to be the hitter back there. You're diagnosed on what he is.
Yeah, and in today's world, you want that safety to do everything.
Yeah.
But give me the guy that can intercept the football, because that's the one thing in the NFL. We had a deal in the summer. Bill Pulliam was part of it, a round table with me, and one of the things he said, you don't see today guys that can catch the ball. And he said, that would seem to be odd. All these 7-on-7s and all the practice sessions that they have. And he said, don't give me the deal that, the cornerback and the safety can't catch. He said, that's something you can learn how to do. But you don't see a lot of interceptions today. And I think that's one thing Marcus Williams can do really well.
I agree.
You saw that interception. He kind of tipped the ball to himself and that sort of deal.
Great hands.
Not a lot of guys can do that. I do think, again, when you play the better quarterbacks, what they're going to attack the Saints with, their running backs and tight ends coming out.
With all the linebackers.
Because I think they're going to say, I don't think your linebackers can cover my backs and my tight ends if I got a real good one. So what Brady did, he didn't throw vertical downfield all the time. He went to the backs. Right. He went to Gronkowski. And so he kind of nickeled you here and there and here and there.
Kind of out of necessity because of the injuries, too.
But against Minnesota, Bradford threw the football downfield because he saw Devontae Harris, the way he was covering, he was doing that. And also he went to his tight end. I do think the next 2 games will tell you a lot about this football team.
They are getting healthy. Get Armstead back. We believe they'll get Armstead back. Ramczyk has played well. Got to say, a lot of unknown about Ramczyk, the ability to move in the middle of a game from right to left side. He's the heir apparent on the right side. Really is, when you really think about it.
You're talking about a guy, Eric, he started 1 year of major college. He was at a Votech school.
Right.
He starts 1 year at Wisconsin. And I'll never forget the pregame we doing for the LSU Network coming into this. And all I had heard from guys, that covered Wisconsin is, boy, Mike, you got to watch Ryan Ramczyk. We think he might be the best tackle we've had here since Joe Thomas. I was like, wait a minute. I'm reading that bio on him. He's been to these little schools or Votech schools. He said, no, watch him play. Well, it's funny, when LSU played him that game, Arden Key for 2 series was on his side. They swung Arden to the other after that. So, man, listen, that's impressive when you can mentally understand to play right and left tackle.
866-3200 is the phone number. Want to get involved in the program tonight. Mike Detillier is our guest. Boy, Alvin Kamara has really shown what he can do in this offense, and now it looks as though Peyton has tried to figure out ways to get him on the field. Talk about Kamara, and then if you would, kind of morph into Adrian Peterson, and what do you think his future is here?
Eric, I've done this show with you before. I never thought it was a good fit for him.
Should they keep him or should they try to move him?
My thing is, I'd move him. He's always been a high volume runner, 32 years old. And it's something Jimmy Taylor told me in the summer was that, he said, I was 32 years old, just like Peterson was when he came. He said, when I came from Green Bay to the Saints, same age. I was in the best shape of my life till I got hit. And he said, where you see it, it's not when you got a hole and you can race through. He said, I could still do it. It's when you get hit. And that ability to get off that tackle and stream up the field. You watch Peterson's runs. He still runs with a lot of aggressiveness, but he's going down a lot quicker. And so that volume of carries that wear you down, he's not going to get that here. Alvin Kamara, he's been unbelievable here. And you see him as a receiver, an edge runner. The thing that I really like about him is, and he isn't the biggest back in the world, constantly falling forward.
Like Pierre Thomas.
Always falling forward. No, he's a more talented player than Pierre Thomas. His quickness, his speed, he's got really good field vision. I know in talking to Deuce about this, one of the things he sort of said, I want to see how he is when linebackers or safeties kind of muscle him a little bit. Well, when you see him going downfield, they try, but he gets away. Right. He has that ability to get open downfield.
He's a patient runner, too.
Very smart runner, but I love the way he finishes off that run. And he can run with power, and then he turns it into speed. Because to me, I don't care if you're a defensive lineman, an outside linebacker, pass rusher, a running back. It starts with power, and then you turn power into speed, and he can do that at a high level.
Mike, where do they have to be at the second quarter of the season in terms of their record?
I think they'll be probably 4-4.
Right. You think do they at least have to split at this point?
I think you got to split at this point because you look down the stretch, and Atlanta's a different team than a year ago, but we knew that. Right. We knew that. They had a little bit of luck, and I thought they would get it again Sunday. They down inside the 20 with a shot to steal a game against a Bills team that clearly outplayed them, and it didn't work for them. So look at Tampa. We'll find out a lot about them in the next couple of weeks too. But they're a good football team.
Especially tonight against New England.
Because New England losing the game. Carolina playing that well against on the road against them.
Well, how many times we said it? Desperate teams
always win.
Yep,
always win. The most desperate teams.
No
don't bet against a desperate team. But again, in this division down the stretch, you would think, weeks back the Rams, easy game. Ain't no easy game anymore.
No.
Because, Goff's played well, and we know they have a really good defense.
Yeah. Let's go to the phone lines. Got some calls lined up for you. Jeffrey's on the West Bank. Jeffrey, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. You're on with Mike Detillier.
Oh, thank you for accepting my call.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
I'm feeling kind of bad for the coaching profession right now. In particular, if it's going the way like Mike Detillier is saying, where the head coach has to gender effect to the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator, and it's like people are saying, the coach has to stay away. Well, I don't. When did this start? When did this begin? Where the head coach has to stay away from one side of the field, either the offense or defense or both. Where did this come from?
It's always
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's always been that way. But, football, you see it so much now. No, this isn't junior high school, and this isn't high school football. Those coordinators, they make that head coach look good, and they also can make him look bad. But the head coach has always sort of deferred to those guys, especially on not their side of the football. Right. It's always sort of been that way in that deal. I know in talking to Jimmy Johnson years ago, Jimmy made the comment, he was a defensive-oriented coach. Him and Butch Davis, they kind of worked great together. Him and Wannstedt worked great together. but Norv Turner ran his offense. Jimmy sort of let Norv do what he wanted to do. And you got to have trust in that guy. No, this isn't middle school. This isn't high school. This is major college football in the NFL. And you've got so many other issues to deal with as a head coach today outside of coaching. You better have somebody that knows what they're doing. Sean Payton's not calling defensive signals for the Saints. Never has. It's always been Greg Williams, or it was Gibbs before Spagnuolo had that 1 year when he came in there. And then Ryan, you know, Sean's not getting involved with that. His expertise is on offense. And everybody's got a strong side one way or another. But it's been that way a long time. But again, you got to separate the fact this isn't like when you played middle school or high school. This is, college football today is semi-pro football.
Right, it's specialized, no doubt.
Exactly.
Let's go to Tom in Metairie. Tom, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Tom.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Thank you, Tom.
I want to make a couple of comments. It's hard to understand why the offensive line and the defensive line of LSU is getting pushed around so much. If you watch individual players, when you see the center being pushed back, you watch the defensive line, you're seeing those guys getting driven back. And I don't know if it's just confusion where they're thinking more and not reacting. But, LSU, every year that I've watched, and I've watched many, many years, they've always looked a step faster than other schools, maybe not other SEC schools. But, Troy and Syracuse, they were hanging in there. LSU looked a step slower this time. I don't know if you could explain maybe if you've seen that yourself. I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
One of the things Ed and I sort of disagree with is, and he believes in these pro practices. And you got to prove it to me that you deserve to be in a pro practice. The scripted 20, 25 plays, and I know those plays, you're physical in doing it, but you don't learn today how to play up front. And I see it at the pro level too, with the limited practices, with the limited time you can hit. That's where it shows up first, that, the lack of physicality on a football team. You only get better by practicing how to do it. That's no flipping that switch, offensive, defensive line. We in camp. People, how did the left guard look or the right defensive end? Well, how would I know? It's pajamas and slippers. They're walking around during these practices. I think some of it is a talent level. I think you can say that's part of it.
Is it youth or talent level?
I think it's talent level. The youth part always comes in that you can't get constantly beat. You got to know what you're doing on that particular part. But 5 guys got to work as one. You got 4 guys that do well, 1 guy messes up. And that's what I see at LSU. You see 4 guys, and then 1 guy makes the mistake. Then the next play is something on the other side. Somebody makes the mistake. That physicality part, that comes from within.
Do you see a change?
Listen, you gotta prove it to me. One thing I give Les, he was hard-headed. He refused to change, would not kind of get into the modern-day football world. His teams were physical. That's the one thing you couldn't take away from him. Those teams were really physical under Les, but, just his philosophy on doing things got out of whack offensively.
Mike, let me say this. I think maybe last year's team, when Orgeron took over, had earned the right
for the pro practices.
Right. This year's team with all the youth,
prove it.
You got to prove it. You got.
I agree with you.
Okay, you got to earn that right.
I agree with you because again, you do have juniors and seniors on this team, but it's a new year every year. Nick Saban made this comment a couple weeks back, and he was asked about what's the biggest motivation and the toughest thing to deal with in college sports, and I think you could put professional sports and really life in general. He says, a lot of these guys and women that play college athletes today, they want to tell you about what they did yesterday and last week and last month and last year. That's nice on the resume. You know what I'm concerned about? Today, tomorrow. He said, maybe it's a generational thing that we've got to teach our young, people growing up. And it's like that in the business world too. And don't tell me what you did 3 years ago. You got to do that today and tomorrow. To be consistent doing that, that's what separates, the great people of this world, the people that accomplish the most, and the people that's kind of in the middle of the world. You got to do it every day and worry about today and tomorrow. You can't rest on your laurels of a year ago.
To Toby and Gretna. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Toby, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Toby, go ahead.
I know Sean Payton has final say-so on the draft picks, but I think before the 16 draft, Tom Benson had a little talk with him and probably told him to listen more to Jeff Ireland than making your own selections. I'd like to hear your comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll tell you how the Saints thing is set up. The scouts and the personnel people, they come up with the ratings, and then they chart it at positions. They give that information to Mickey and Sean. Mickey and Sean sets up the board. Now, again, you're going off of the scouts' opinions and what Jeff Ireland has, but that is handed off to Mickey and Sean, and they come up with their own board because they're looking for what they consider their type players. So I understand where you're coming from, but it's not the reality. In essence, those scouts set it up, and then they hand that info to Sean and Mickey, and they set up the board.
To the last call, Darren in Violet. Darren, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Darren. Darren, you with us? And Darren is gone.
Darren's 1, 2, 3 gone.
One quick, we got about a minute left. Tulane, big game this weekend against Tulsa. Tulsa's had their number. Talk about it.
Yeah, listen, I got so much respect for Willie Fritz. I think he's a tremendous coach. Hopefully Jonathan Banks is healthy at quarterback. Their defense has hung in there, just hung in there like grim death and stayed with it. It's all going to be how much production you can get from that position, because when you run that offense, you got to have a quarterback that can make something happen. We've seen some explosive plays from their running backs, but it's a huge game against Tulsa. They have not played well against this football team. But you know what? Willie's got this team pointed in the right direction. The one thing I'd love to see him do more of, and that's recruit better locally. I think he has started to, but boy, he's got some catching up to do, because now you got everybody here. Every other SEC school in Independence
here. It's going to be a big, big class this year, too, from what I understand here locally. Mike Detillier, as always, thanks for being with us. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV. That's at 10 p.m. You can catch us statewide on Friday night, Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 p.m., of course, on Pelican Broadcasting. Also, remember, you catch me on the radio, 990 a.m., WGSO. That's weekdays 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. The TuneIn Radio app is a great way to take the show with you anywhere as well. Also, as far as the website goes, you can catch every previous episode of Inside New Orleans Sports at the website, ericasher.com, as well. Let's thank our friends here tonight. Mike Detillier, we always appreciate your time. Also, the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson. Also, Trey Lopez, Kenny Juneau, and my director, William Hale, New Orleans. Have a great week. Hopefully that hurricane will steer away from our state. We'll be right back here next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Have a great week.